Hi, I'm Jerry's Doctor, and today we're going to talk about standings in the Crimewatch system. So the Crimewatch system is the system which controls how criminals and suspects are flagged and recognized by Concord and by other players in the game. So let's talk about security status to start. Your security status is a numeric indication of how well you're known to the authorities. This changes based on your actions, and this includes authorities both in the imperial sense, the individual empires and their faction police, but also your familiarity with Concord. Security status increases as you run security missions, kill pirates, and generally help the empires keep the peace. Your security status is a measure of, are you a criminal? Do you have notoriety or infamy? Or are you somebody who is known to be helpful? Are you a boon to the local lawmakers and peacekeepers? Security status decreases correspondingly when you make illegal attacks against capsuleers or certain benign NPCs in their own space. Attacking Concord is a very, very bad idea. For example, if you make an unprovoked attack of a capsuleer ship, this is a small hit to your overall security status. Your security status will get a 2.5% modification times the current system security times 1 plus the target security minus the aggressor security divided by 100, which gives you a percentile value. The aggressor's new security status gets a modification times the current security, and this seems like a lot of math, and it is. But what it typically ends up with is that, say if your security is a 2.49, you've slowly been raising it up, but it's not anywhere near max. If you haven't anywhere near maxed it out, you're going to be able to attack somebody and you won't suffer a massive drop in your security status. It might drop from a 2.49 to a 2.337, something on that range. You're not going to see a huge hit to your security status. You're still firmly going to remain in the positive. You can grind it back up by doing some security missions or killing nearby rats. It's not a huge hit. But if you make an unprovoked attack against a capsule, well, you go from a 2.5% modification base to a 25% modification base, meaning depending on the security status of the person you're attacking, the illegal hit, you're looking at up to a quarter of your security status being able to drop. At a security status of -2 or below, you'll be attacked automatically by faction police and potentially by Concord in 1.0 systems. In -2.5 security status, it means you'll be attacked in 0.9 and so on as you go down the scale. Basically, if you enter high sec and you have a low security status, you're going to get attacked. Standings, on the other hand, are specific to individual factions, empires, and political groups. They're a numeric measure of how much people like you or respect you, and it measures both enmity and enamorment. Personal and corporate or alliance standings affect how players will respond to you, and will let you understand how you should respond to those players in kind. Faction standings affect how NPCs respond to your presence in their space. Fleet members and corporation members are always flagged in these same colors unless you change the priority. This is where the term NPSI comes from. If they're not purple, shoot it. Purple is the standard color for the fleet member flag, and in certain overview settings you can choose whether or not you see those purples on field or in your brackets in space. This is also particularly useful when looking at corporation members. So if you see somebody in local chat or in corporation chat and there's a green mark next to their name, typically that means that person's in your corporation. If you're still in a newbie corporation or a NPC corp, you'll find that everybody in that chat channel should have these green ticks next to their names. These are definitely the default. But when you see somebody who's got a dark blue plus next to their name, or field of blue with a a white plus symbol, these are your alliance members or your plus 10s. This is a gradiated scale, but typically anybody who's plus 10 is set as what is typically called perma-blue, or very positively aligned to your alliance or corporation, or are members of the said alliance. Temp blues are people who have a light blue plus next to their name, and this is a plus 5 or better positive rating, meaning that your diplomats have set these people as blue to you. They're typically not members of your alliance, but perhaps members of your larger player base in the area. So if you have a coalition active with someone, it's unlikely for you to have plus 10 with those people. Typically what you're going to see is plus 5, marking them as allies or temp blue. When people talk about the blue donut, this is typically what they're talking about, is the people that have surrounded you, that are shoring up your map lines, but who could potentially be reset and become enemies the next day. If you see somebody who actually has a gray block next to their name with an equal sign, that means that this person's been intentionally set neutral. People who are neutral to you, or sometimes called neuts, especially in nullsec, those neuts are people who don't really have a standings because they're not from the area. If you see somebody who's been intentionally set neutral, that typically means they're a known quantity. They're neighbors, but perhaps they don't pose a threat, or you have some sort of set agreement where you don't necessarily engage them, or maybe you do, maybe they're fair target, or maybe you just have an unspoken agreement not to engage with them because they're not, it's really not even fun to farm them. Whatever the case may be, there's typically a diplomatic reason for somebody to be set neutral, and always ask your leadership and FCs whether or not you should be attacking them if you see set neutral. Then there's Neg 5, and Neg 5 is typically measured as good for fights. Alliances and corporations will typically set each other as -5, or disliked, as being a good measure for their pilots to understand that these guys are good for fights. These are valid targets. You can attack these guys. When you see somebody who is Neg 10 or red, these guys are definitely good to shoot, and typically if you see Neg 10, it means shoot on sight. You don't usually have to ask permission to engage either Neg 5 or Neg 10, and in many cases, if you don't attack a Neg 10 when you have the chance, you'll be called out to answer why. Now, in high sec, and sometimes in low sec, if you see somebody who has a white skull in a field of red, and that skull is flashing, that is typically the marker for a war target, or somebody whose alliance or corporation has paid Concord to look the other way. They have the ability and freedom to engage you in all sectors of space, regardless of security status, and shoot you. It is a freedom to return fire as well, and to engage with them actively in any region of space. It is a basic, open order, shoot on sight, kill order. And the beauty of having war targets is that they may war target, they may target you for a war declaration, but that is a two-way road. They open themselves up to being killed in high sec as well, which means Concord will not interfere. Gate guns will not fire upon you for firing on a war target, because they are always considered a valid target. But these standings exist as a way for players to really control some of the combat landscape in EVE. They also affect your standings and ability to draw agents. Anyone can access level 1 agents. You need a -10 standing, modified or unmodified, to access level 1 agents, which means -10, that's as low as you can get in your standings. You will always be able to pull level 1 missions, which means that no matter how badly you've screwed up your standings with the group, you can always rebuild. However, getting level 2 agents to give you missions requires that you build your standing to at least a 1. This is pretty easy. Getting access to level 3 agents is a little bit harder. You start having to build those standings up towards, you know, plus 10. You know, at level 3, you're getting level 3 agents. At minimum standing of 5, you're getting level 4. And at minimum standing of 7, you get level 5 missions. But it's not just the freedom to, you know, operate in people's space, or gain access to missions, or maybe running bigger and bigger, you know, industry missions or courier missions, whatever the case may be, whatever your favorite flavor of PvE is. The higher your standings go, the higher the rewards go correspondingly. For example, faction warfare can be accessed with the standings of 0.0 or better with any faction. When you start working on behalf of one faction, their enmity faction will have a corresponding reduction in standings. So every point of positive standings you gain with the MR, you lose standings with the Minotaur. Your standings with NPC corporations, empires, and factions will increase or decrease based on who you're friends with, who you choose to shoot, and how notorious you are. Running missions for faction or NPC agents will raise your standings with those factions, and decrease those standings with their enemy. At -5, NPC factions will begin shooting you on sight in their space. At -2, you lose access to all of that faction's or corporation's agents except those that are level 1. At level 6, corporations will stop taxing your refinery use entirely. So there's industrial benefits to raising your standings above a certain point. At level 8 or a modified 8.5, some factions will offer you a 2-run faction frigate BPC. What this means is that if you get a really good standings with the Charistas, for example, they could give you a worm BPC that would allow you to run off a couple of worms. And when you get into the 9 and up range, so in the range of getting up to a positive 10 standings, you will find yourself being offered faction cruiser and faction battleship blueprint copies. There's a whole chart of the standings dependencies in EVE. This is what it looks like. And how to read this chart is a little confusing at first, but it's pretty straightforward. So, faction size is measured on a scale of 1 through 5. On this chart, typically 3 is the lowest you'll find, but 5 is the highest. So, for example, the Amar are one of the largest factions. Kaldari State, Concord, Galente Federation, those are all 5s, Jove Empire, and so on. Some of the smaller pirate nations will be 3s, such as Mordu's Legion, the Serpentis Corporation, corporations like Interbus, the Servant Sisters of Eve. But slightly larger organizations, those criminal empires and nomadic groups that fit in between, like the Charistas Empire or the Syndicate, are good examples of middle-of-the-range, forces which have their own standing armies, as it were. The highest standing you can have is a 10, and obviously the Amar are plus 10 to the Amar. The Amatar Mandate enjoy a 9 positive standing with the Amar Empire. However, conversely, going the other direction, the Blood Raider Covenant have a -8, as do Sancha's Nation, and the Minmatar Republic, -5. So the Amar dislike or even actively hate the Minmatar and will shoot them on sight in their space, but they hate the Sancha and the Blood Raiders even more. So this chart, and I'll share this in the video description, gives you a really good idea of how to understand. If you start cranking your standings up with the Minmatar, you're going to see a huge drop from the Amar. If you have a positive standing with the Mordu's Legion, you're going to be fine with the Amar. The Amar love Mordu's Legion, but the Garistas are going to hate you. They're going to hate you with a burning, fiery passion. So it's all about be careful who you're friends with. Sometimes you want to be neutral with certain groups just to maintain positive standings with the other groups you deal with regularly. A little bit of caution can help you out in a big way. The next thing you need to know about is timers. Timers are temporary flags which indicate to other players and NPCs that you've done something noteworthy. Flagged states are the result of those timers, and they have these qualities. They affect movement, they define combat engagements, they constrain concord response, and they simplify combat to something which, if not fair, is at least predictable. Before the Crimewatch 2 update in, I believe, 2012, it used to be that EVE ran on aggression tables. There's a whole other video by an EVE dev that I will share in the description that goes into why aggression tables are an abomination before God, and I encourage you to watch it because it's brilliant and funny. But basically, aggression tables made it so that you had a constant escalation and proliferation of fighting. Fights would just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it made it more and more complicated for the game to keep track of who was able to shoot whom. Timers make it a lot simpler. The current timer flags are the limited engagement timer, which works when somebody shoots you and you shoot them back. You now have a limited engagement timer with them, or if somebody challenges you to a duel and you accept, you get a 5-minute limited engagement timer, which means the two of you can shoot each other freely without a concord response. And provided neither of you has a suspect or criminal flag, you can fight each other without anybody else jumping in and not suffering some sort of punitive action. So if you have a limited engagement timer, you've challenged somebody to a duel, you're doing 1v1 at the sun, and somebody else jumps into third party on that, well, they're going to be flagged suspect, and then you can freely attack them. And that's where we get into aggression timers as well. So aggression timers are a timer which indicates to gates, stations, and concord that you've recently used an offensive weapon system against another vessel in space. And this aggression timer, weapons timer, runs for 60 seconds from the last time you engaged those modules. So if you're firing your autocannons from a wolf and you're shooting those at, a bestower you happen to have caught on a gate, the moment you stop shooting, you have 60 seconds before you can dock or jump through a stargate or jump through a wall. When you're engaging against PvE, you're engaging against the environment, you're fighting NPCs, you're going to get a non-capsuleer log-off timer. And what this means is that normally, if you haven't engaged in combat, you can warp to a safe or go to a moon, someplace where there aren't people, and you can log off safely in space. And as long as you're, in a safe place, you're not in warp, you're not using any modules that break that, you normally only have a 30-second timer before you safely log out. Not so if you've recently engaged in combat. One of the turnarounds is that you can't log off for 15 minutes after your most recent combat, plus there's 30-second timeout for the safe log-off timer. The same happens if you attack another capsuleer. So the capsuleer log-off timer, if you're out in a fleet and you hot drop on somebody, you black ops in and you're fighting them, and they bring friends in and suddenly you're outnumbered, so you try to escape, but they've closed all the doors to the system you're in. Well, you're going to try and bounce around to different bookmarks and different pings and then find a safe place to safe log off. Well, this makes your job that much harder because they now have an additional 10, 15, number of minutes from your last engagement in which to combat probe you, find you, and shoot you. So the purpose of this, these two timers, are to prevent you from engaging in combat and then just being able to hit disconnect and not worry about your ship being blown up. And if you do disconnect your client while you have one of these two active states, this gives people time during which this time your ship will remain in space and they can come and find you and blow you up. The suspect timer happens when you engage in an illegal combat action. meaning you've illegally attacked somebody who was not presently a legal target for you. Illegal attacks against a ship will incur the corresponding small hit. If you engage with a ship in high sec or a pod in low sec, you'll take a bigger standings hit. Engaging against a ship in high sec or a pod in low sec will earn you the criminal timer. That criminal timer means that if you are currently flagged criminal and you jump into high sec, Concord will respond and blow you up. If you shoot an illegal target in high sec and gain the criminal timer, Concord will show up and blow you up. This is what we call Concordoken. Concord responds or you lose your ship. Timers show up at the top left corner of your screen and are easily identifiable for the little indicator they have around them showing how much time approximately is and relatively is remaining. And if you mouse over them, it will show you exactly how much time is left and what incurred the timer. The details on these particular states and how you incur them is detailed out in these two images from CCP Dev blog. These are the flags awarded for combat actions. And again, it's weapons timers, PvP criminal, and suspect. And I will share this image and the accompanying following image in the description for this video. And here you can see the consequences, or what happens when you gain those flags. So for example, if you engage in a criminal action in high sec, you can't initiate warp, you can't jump through a Stargate, you can't dock at station, you can't jump through a wormhole, you can't use a jump to a Sino beacon, nothing for those 15 minutes, in which time I can pretty much guarantee Concord's going to show up and blow you. In which case, you can see here, Concord will spawn and kill. And if Concord doesn't get you, sentry guns will. Then there's kill rights. Kill rights are a way for Concord to allow retribution while controlling collateral damage and proliferation. Kill rights are earned whenever you attack another ship illegally. They don't necessarily need to be from the result of blowing up another ship or even blowing up a pod. They are issued when an illegal attack is made, and it gives you the rights to re-engage that person at a later time and extract your vengeance. Kill rights can also be made public. So if you're an industrialist and you're not very good at PvP, not to say that industrialists aren't, I'm just saying, in this example, and you wanted to have a friend revenge you for you, you can sell or give that kill right to them, or you can make it public. You can also buy and sell your kill rights. You can make your kill right available publicly and say, I want X amount of ISK in order to activate this kill right so that you can kill this person in high sec. As I mentioned, you can gift it to another player, and you can even share it with your corp mates or members of your alliance. So when it comes to selling kill rights, there's a genuine bounty system out there in addition to the kill rights that gives bounty hunters something to really go for. Not only do they collect a portion of the bounty that gets paid out as part of the bounty system when people put money on a person's head, but kill rights then makes it legal for that person to fight the target that they want to blow up in any region of space, as long as they're willing to pay the fee to activate said kill right. So this actually tends to make bounty hunters' jobs easier. But kill rights can also be used to scam. And a common kill right scam is to get into a ship, fill the hold with something that makes it look worthwhile to blow up, makes it an appealing target. But then they charge for a kill right on that pilot that exceeds the cost of losing the ship. And if that ship is properly insured, you'll get the payout from the insurance, plus the payout from somebody activating the kill right, and you can actually end up doubling your risk. So let's say, a Talos swoops in on you, and he attacks you. Well, the first thing he's going to get is 3 flags. The Capsuleer Logoff timer, the Suspect timer, if you're in low sec, and the Weapons timer, or the Aggression timer. If somebody says he's aggressed, that's what that last icon means. But in addition to that, if it was an illegal attack, you'll get a kill right. And kill rights are awarded in the kill right section of your character sheet under interactions. It's the first tab. Kill rights against you are indicated here, and kill rights you have against others are listed here as well. Kill rights are active for 30 days and do not expire until the offending pilot has been destroyed. So the second they lose a ship or their pod, you end up getting that kill right removed from there. And kill rights will only show up for the pilot who holds the kill right, even if it's been made active. In this example, you can see that Sir Farmer has a kill right against me with 20 days remaining. And then that kill right is 30 million ISK. So if somebody wants to activate a kill right on me, they have to pay him 30 million ISK in order to attack me in high sec. Kill rights to be activated are selected when somebody targets you or indicates you from their overview and then clicks the reticle at the top right corner. Mousing over it will show that you can activate the suspect flag on said pilot. It'll list the cost for activating it, and then there's a button to click activate. So what that means is if you're in high sec and you have a kill right active on you, somebody can pay that fee and make you suspect even though you haven't done anything illegal at that moment. Concord won't respond to a suspect timer in high sec, but everyone else can. Limited engagement timers work a little bit differently in terms of how they're indicated. If you have a limited engagement timer with someone, if you've attacked them and they shoot back, or they've attacked you and you shoot back, you get a 5-minute timer that starts, and it will indicate who the pilots are that you have that limited engagement with. So even though you may have a timer that has run out for aggression, undocking in space when those pilots are around may open you to a fight you're not ready for, or maybe just what you're looking for. I hope that you've found this video useful, and I hope that it's elucidated some of the details around the Crimewatch system, standings, security, and flags that you maybe didn't understand before. If you have found this helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and of course recommend me to your friends. Cheers.